Look who's back.
Hey.
That's too bad.
Power corrupts us all.
So as of late, my old Transformers DS video has been carrying my channel on its shoulders, and I've had a fair few comments asking me to play the sequel to that game, Revenge of the Fallen Decepticons, for the Nintendo DS. I'm okay with this, you know, it only makes sense. These days, you gotta have a sequel, or at least I would be okay with this if the game wasn't kind of a letdown. Yeah, I'm not gonna hide it, this game kinda blows ass. There are some redeeming factors to it though, which I feel are important to go over before I start tearing into this game's urethra, so I'll list them off here. I will also go in depth on them a little more later on in the video, but I want to give the game some praise first before I dig into it. It's like giving a minion a banana before you rip it to pieces, and that's something that's actually on my bucket list, by the way, so don't take that from me. Oh, also, before I get into anything too crazy, I actually had a lot of trouble recording this game and almost had to record the entire thing in German, which would have been really interesting to play the German version of the game, but apparently everything's fine now, and my brain was just being extra smooth, so let's move on. So before I get into the actual meat of the game, I just want to briefly go over some things I like and introduce you to how the game works. So the game has a pretty intricate weapon system, and by that I mean the game has a system that allows you to switch out the weapons of your character, including primary and secondary. This is the alternative to the first game's ability to have you change forms and vehicles which had their own unique weapons and abilities. Here you can fully customize your weapons loadout, instead of being able to change what vehicle you are, which I don't really have much of a problem with if I'm honest. I like being able to pick my guns and special abilities rather than being locked to whatever loadout the car I decide to use has. Locking the loadout to the vehicles is something I never really liked all that much, but overall I was indifferent to it. The other thing I really like about this game is that the transform button is bound to the controller, or buttons, however you're playing this thing. This is something that makes playing the original game on PC an absolute bitch, because you have to use the mouse to select the transform button. I guess by the time this game came out there was so much animosity towards using the touchscreen to do everything, including moving Mario and Mario 64, transforming in the 2007 games, wiping your ass with the stylus, and so many more, that they finally decided to do away with it and just bind it to a button. It makes transforming a little easier, and I kinda prefer it this way, or for playing on a PC at least. Although that statement about transforming easier isn't gonna hold up too well a little bit later on in the video, so hold on to that. Anyways, with all that fun stuff out of the way, let's get into the real meat of this game. Coming off of the plot of the previous title, you'd expect that Transformers Revenge of the Fallen DS would have something more to offer. It's something to bring to the table, even better than the original did, because after all, that's the purpose of a sequel. If the original game brought us a lovely salted caramel sundae, then this game is obligated to bring us a salted caramel sundae with extra ice cream. It's just the way the system works, I don't make the rules. So let's find out if that's true. Let's find out whether or not this game has let us down, or if it's produced another masterpiece. The story takes place in a separate timeline than the other game, so forget all about it. This game is set after the events of the first movie actually, so forget any and all character development we had in the first game because none of it matters. This isn't a bad thing, it's just they decided to base the game on the sequel to the movie, so of course it's not going to be a sequel to the first game, although I would love to see something like that. Barricade is back, Starscream is here, and so are other previously deceased characters. Barricade from the first game is one of my favorite Transformers characters of all time, if not my favorite alongside Megatron. And I know he's dead and all, and that's best for his character, but alright, hold up, I'm getting ahead of myself here. We'll discuss that later, it's not quite time to talk about Barricade just yet, but we will get into that. Our story starts in the United States. Starscream has control over the Decepticon Legion due to Megatron's death, yet still under the command of the Fallen, the Decepticon Supreme Leader. We open up on Starscream undergoing a training routine with Soundwave before he regroups with his Decepticon goons, Sideways and Grindor.
Look who's back. That's too bad. I was hoping an Autobot had taken you out. Careful, Grindor. You don't want to get on my bad side. Bad side? Ha! I didn't know you had a good side. I thought, what in the verse is that?
I detected energon radiation signature. There's a high percentage chance that it's a protoform.
A protoform? Idiot! It's a Cybertronian without a vehicle form. Hopefully it has more brains than two of you. I must get to it before the Autobots. Soundwave, report!
The crash site is 3.2 mega miles from your location.
Lower that weapon if you value your life. Who are you? You dare disobey Starscream, leader of the Decepticons? Don't make me kill you.
Glad I ran into fellow Decepticons. I want to annihilate some Autobots.
We don't want anyone that can't carry their own weight in battle.
Give me something to tear apart. I'll prove my capabilities. Where am I, anyway?
A wretched planet called Earth. We came here years ago looking for the Allspark, but the Autobots destroyed it. Speaking of junk. Blast off, Starscream. I'm here for the protoform.
I'm not going anywhere with a traitor like you, Autobot.
You're too late, Optimus. The protoform's with me. Soundwave, guide him back to the others while I take care of Prime.
So here's where we effectively meet our character from the first game, our protoform. He's guided by Soundwave to a parking lot where he scans a vehicle form and proceeds to kill a bunch of Autobots, thus concluding the opening segment of the game. So a few things I want to touch on here. First of all is Starscream's voice actor. The voice actor in the first game was incredible, and with the dialogue he was given, managed to pull off an amazing vocal performance. But not that the dialogue was bad or anything, just I worded that weird. This version of Starscream is pretty much the same in the way that he acts, but his voice sounds like something you'd expect from Megatron himself. When Starscream's voice is more intimidating than both the Fallen, the almighty evil overlord of the story, and Megatron himself, it's a little jarring. Starscream's character flourishes in an environment that forces him to take cowardly and underhanded tactics to gain the upper hand in battle or within the Decepticon ranks. But here he's just barking orders at everyone with a dark, sinister voice. He literally fights Optimus Prime in the first 2 minutes of the game. This version of Starscream just comes across as another Decepticon goon without much to differentiate him. He talks just like everyone else, and with his new voice, he sounds like everyone else too. In the original game, his opening monologue has him sweet-talking you, giving you orders in a manipulative tone. You can tell that he's hiding something just by the way he's speaking and the words that he's saying. Here, there's just a lot of angry dialogue with an angry voice, and if you asked me to guess what character was speaking without me knowing, I can bet you money that I wouldn't guess Starscream. We're also introduced to Soundwave in this opening scene, and if you're excited to see him show up, then too bad, because he's literally just the voiceover your communicator giving you orders the whole game. I know, I was disappointed too. He never really says or does anything. He's basically the tutorial section of the game, telling you what you need to do, where you need to go, and all that kind of fun stuff. While this is fine and technically in character for him to just mindlessly follow his superior's orders, it would have been nice to see him in-game. I know in the movie he's a satellite, but still, actually getting some shots of him would have been nice, rather than just having him sit on a phone call with me for 2 hours. Like, make a character model for him or something like that. Grindor and Sideways are also here, and they're not really characters either. Now you might be wondering why I'm bringing all this up so early on in the video, and that's because this sequence we just watched is the only part of the game that has any development at all for Grindor or Sideways. In the original game, Blackout was basically your mode of transport, and he was the one that dropped you off at missions and flew you to different locations around the world, but he also had a character. He was the soft-spoken, cold, and calculated one that kept your group informed on the proceedings of the overarching mission.
I'm afraid I have more bad news. I've intercepted a transmission that mentions Autobot reinforcements entering the atmosphere, and that Optimus Prime is with them. I've been unable to find a way inside the compound. If you two fembots are done, then let's get to work.
He avoided combat and tried to be more of an assisting support character for the other characters. His counterpart here, Grindor, is just an angry brute. Now, Brawl was an angry brute in the original game that always talked about destroying things, but in that game the other characters talked about it around him. They're aware that he's all brawn and no brains. Basically the opposite of Blackout. Him and Blackout in that game were a nice duo because they both provided a strength that was the other's weakness.
Blackout? I haven't seen you since Tiger Packs. Barricade sent you to this dump too?
Ah, yes. We'd left that Autobot city in ruins.
Ain't that the truth? Who's the runt?
The runt is the one in charge of this mission.
In this game, the parallel is Grindor and Sideways, but the issue with that is that they're both just kinda generic grunts. Sideways doesn't really have much of anything to say, and when he does, it's not really anything important or supplementary. Anyways, I'm talking too much about Grinder and Sideways when I could be progressing with the story, so let's move on. So after this, we get some dialogue between our characters so far talking about who the Fallen is, and establishing that he's the true leader of the Decepticons, and that Starscream is just the general of the army.
I thought you said the Allspark was destroyed. It was, but one shard retains some of its power. When we get it, we're going to use it to revive Megatron. Reviving Megatron is a waste of the shard's power. And you are a waste of a Decepticon. Luckily for us, the Fallen favors Megatron.
Who's the Fallen?
Don't let Starscream fool you. He's not fit to lead the Decepticons. The Fallen's the one calling the shots.
After this, you're sent to gather information from some nest vehicles that Soundwave suspects contain the whereabouts of Megatron's corpse. We just did that in the last game, but okay. So we go on a hunt for Megatron. And the reason I said it like that is because not much of anything really happens here. In my last video, it was pretty easy to talk about each mission while skipping over the filler ones, but here almost every mission feels like filler, hence why I just kind of summarized it like that. Almost every main mission with your protoform character has you doing one of a handful of things. You're either scanning satellites, destroying generators, or planting bombs. That's it. Over and over and over again. Sometimes you have to do it multiple times in the same mission. This mission has you scan the cars you need for the information and then destroy the cars afterwards. We learn nothing about where Megatron is located, but instead we're thrust into another random scenario where Soundwave tells us that the Autobots just planted a bomb in a factory and we have to go stop them for some reason. Aren't we the bad guys? Or why are we stopping them from doing that? Why are they doing that? Why are we even concerned about this? What does this have to do with Megatron? And okay, right. Now I get it. Unlike the first game, this game is not a game that bases itself on its plot, and if you try and analyze it that way, it's going to make no sense at all. This game throws you all over the world without any care for the plot at all, really, which is something that the first game took care to do. It is nothing like the first, and the sooner you realize that, the more fun you'll actually have with this game. Because the plot is so weak and basically just has you running around the world searching for Megatron and the Allspark shard for a while with very little to no character development or anything of the like, I'm gonna just focus on the gameplay for the next little while. So after you disarm some bombs that Optimus Prime put in a factory to blow it up, and scan some satellites, and scan some bombs, and blow up a turret, and then blow up a bomb, and then scan some more satellites, and kill a few Autobots, and then blow up a bomb, and then scan a turret, you're given a handful of lines of dialogue in the mission select screen before being thrust into another mission that revolves around blowing up bombs or scanning satellites. Almost never do we actually see our characters together. We just hear them talking on the phone as we prepare to dive into our next routine session of scanning shit. It gets old really fast. This game doesn't have a world to explore, so the only thing to do is shoot stuff and scan things. Now, I'll give the game credit where it's due. The shooting is a lot of fun and it's actually an improvement over the first game. You can now switch targets while locked on, giving you a more precise aim, and on top of that there's a whole selection of weapons you can choose from. This game, as I mentioned earlier, does away with the custom vehicle modes in favor of this new system that has you customize your loadout and attributes personally, rather than relying on the different vehicle forms to do it for you. You can upgrade different aspects of your character as you progress and collect energon. And you can scan weapons crates to collect either new guns or new interior parts for your Transformer. On top of this, the 3 different vehicle modes you can choose from range between light, medium weight, and obese, and they perform about as you'd expect. So you can either build an absolute tank of a Transformer that uses rockets and grenades, or you can be a smaller Transformer that relies on speed and agility to win fights. That's the form I chose for this video, by the way, just because I like how he roller skates around all over the place. The vehicle modes themselves have slightly different speeds, but to be honest, that doesn't really matter at all, considering the driving in this game sucks sweaty ballsack. I have no idea how to describe the driving in this game at all. The first game nailed it. You had everything you needed in driving controls right there in front of you, and you completely screwed that up. I don't know how they managed to do it, but they did, and there's no way I can defend the driving in this game. The turbo boost is awkward to use, and now requires 2 buttons instead of 1, and the handling is horrible. The first game had me feeling like I was driving a car when I was playing as a car, but in this game, every single vehicle feels and handles like a tank. Not to mention, by the way, when you get to play as Megatron, his tank form also handles the exact same as this tiny little thing. It even sounds the same. Why does a Cybertronian tank sound like my granddad's Ford Focus? Did the Decepticons replace Megatron's engine? Is it just lazy design? I'll go with the latter, just for my own sanity. Anyways, we'll get to that Megatron section of the game in a bit, because that's something I really want to talk about, but it is a good segue into talking about playing as the actual movie characters. Now, playing as the movie characters in this game is only utilized for challenge missions, unlike the, heavy utilization of them for the plot in the first game, the good one. So what I mean by this is that the only time you get to use characters like Sideways, Barricade, or Megatron are when you're doing things like having a race, or playing an Energon Easter egg hunt. Granted, there are some missions that let you utilize how broken the movie characters are, and just shoot everything and everyone in sight, but this is barely ever in comparison to the amount of missions that exist of Barricade running through a military base picking up Energon cubes. Like, why did he go from being one of the coolest Transformers characters in the last game to picking up pocket change in the street in this one? And on top of that, he doesn't have voice lines in this game either. Now, it's almost for the best, considering I don't want to pretend that this is even the same character as the other Barricade. Speaking of voice lines, by the way, almost no characters have voice lines. The only time we get to hear characters speak is during the opening, the ending, and in the menus when we get dialogue. I'm pretty sure there are actually a few missions where dialogue pops up here and there, like the developers just randomly decided to record odd lines throughout the game for some reason. It's so weirdly put in. During missions, the text will pop up and we'll just hear nothing. It's not a glitch, they just didn't fully voice this game like they did the last one. Hell, the characters that are fully voiced in this game aren't even technically fully voiced because they reuse audio bites from the original. Starscream, for example, has a new voice actor. But when he swings for a punch, he makes the same noise as he did in the original, giving him 2 separate voices. So his grunts and attack sounds are the same ones they used from the original voice actor, but his voice is the new voice actor. Okay, Ironhide does this too in his boss fight later in the game, and I won't lie, I'm gonna give the game a lot of credit here. He has a much better voice than he did in the original.
Hard to believe the Decepticons sent a runt like you after Jetfire. Glad to see you've got some guts. I've been itching for a good fight.
But when you punch him, he groans with the original voice from the 2007 game. It makes no sense beyond a lazy development, and it's here where the cracks in the game begin to really show and unveil just how rushed this game was. So the next thing I want to cover about this game are the boss fights. The boss fights in this game are all identical. So for the playthrough you're watching in the background, I fight Bumblebee the normal way, and then for the next 2, I slap on some cheat codes just to get it over with quicker. Don't come for me. The game is a slog. The first boss you encounter is Bumblebee in the Roman gladiatorial arena. He doesn't move from his position whatsoever, he just stands there and shoots at you, unmoving, not even flying around like Starscream did in the final boss of the original Decepticons game. Nothing. You just have to sidestep and shoot. Hold left and shoot and you'll beat him. It's that simple. Actually, maybe not. There is another element to these boss fights that I forgot to mention. At every third of his health bar, he'll hide behind a shield and call in an airstrike on you. Oh man, how are we gonna get out of this one? You have 20 seconds to redirect this airstrike or you'll be blown to bits. How do we redirect the strike? What new and creative gameplay element do I have to use to defeat the boss? You scan a satellite. Yeah, another satellite scan. Half of this fucking game is scanning satellites. At this point, I'd rather scan my ass cheeks on a photocopier and deliver it to whoever greenlit this stupid mechanic in the first place. So when you scan the satellite, the airstrike gets redirected to Bumblebee and he takes damage. That's it. Rinse and repeat, he's dead. This wouldn't usually be so bad. You know, to be honest, it's not a bad boss fight for a DS game. Actually, I would argue it's pretty good. But the fact that all 3 main boss fights in this game, including the final one, work this exact same way, it's astounding to me. How was it possible that in the first game, every single boss fight felt different? They all feel and play in unique ways. The environment you're in changes, the strategies change, you play as different characters while fighting them, which shakes things up a little. You're not sitting there strafing left the entire time, shooting mindlessly. There's 2 bosses in the original games that I can think of which actually do this, and that's Brawl in Autobots and then Starscream in Decepticons. The difference between those and this, however, is that almost nothing else is there in these ones. Both of those boss fights have second elements outside of just scanning more satellites. Starscream's has 3 phases. The Allspark phase, the phase where he flies around and tries to escape you and you have to have a dogfight with him, and then the run and gun thing like in this game, where he just stands still and you have to hold left and shoot. And that's fine there, because it's one part of one boss in the entirety of the game. But here, Bumblebee, Ironhide, and Optimus Prime himself follow this exact same pattern. It's literally a copy-paste scenario, and it's just disappointing considering the creativity of the original game's boss fights. Damn, I've been talking about boss fights, satellites, boss fights for so long now that I almost forgot the story, so let me just see in my notes here where we're at with that. Oh, okay, right, I'm up to speed. So after many a scanned satellite, your third mission has you take on a whole different style of gameplay in the form of Starscream levels. Now these are nice, they're a much needed mix up in style, and it's really cool to actually dogfight here. You take control of Starscream over the ocean, shooting other planes and boats below. This mission repeats itself twice more throughout the game, the other 2 times being the Megatron rescue mission and a challenge mission. The way this mission plays out is fine, but the onslaught of enemies in the challenge mission is just irritating. There's frankly too many of them without enough variety, and it kind of becomes a game of just holding the fire button and not really doing much else. There's a cool maneuver you can do though by hitting the transform button, which changes you into a robot for a brief moment before changing back into a jet and flying the opposite way. It's a cool way to turn around quickly if there's planes on your tail. This whole Starscream flying section is actually really good overall, and I like how they're faithful to Starscream's role in the movies, since he spends most of his time there in his jet form, flying around and doing missions a lot like this. He also does the quick little mid-air transformation thing in the first movie, so implementing it as one of his moves here is really cool, and I like to see those original animations come to life. I really wish the game had more original stuff like this, man. Playing as Starscream in this game, outside of the opening mission, is completely different to playing any other character, and I really like that. It's just a shame that they didn't do anything else like that to shake up the level variety just a bit. So again, speaking of the movie characters, when do we play as them? Well, the first time we get to touch a movie character is Sideways in the first challenge mission. Your objective is just to shoot the shit out of people and not much else. This is great fun, and I love how it works and plays out. Sideways has some incredibly powerful weapons, and it's so much fun to play as a completely broken character and blow everyone up as seemingly a reward for finishing the main missions. If all the challenges were like this, that would be great, but most of them have you take on the role of either Barricade or Sideways and just drive around collecting Energon, like your dad going to collect the milk from 2006. Or when your mom takes you to go and get a Happy Meal, at least then you're getting something cool out of it. But no, in this mission you just get a lackluster mission complete screen, and I am done with the repetitive levels in this game, man. Anyway, some other challenge missions have you running around a military base doing just that, collecting Energon, which is fun. We haven't done that 25 times in this game already. The first game had this, but as an optional challenge, making it a lot less monotonous. The controls in that game were also a lot tighter in terms of transforming and such, making it easier to quickly transform and chain maneuvers together. Here, you can't move at all while we're in your transformation animation, and I don't know why they did this, but they lock you in place, which makes transforming from vehicle to robot take forever, and the amount of time it takes to do so and raise your weapon is not enough to avoid being shot at a million times. Maybe it was a janky controller I used to play this with when I recorded the video, but I doubt it, since I've been playing this game since I was around 9 years old, and I remember hating the transformation sequence just as much back then. Anyway, back to the movie characters. I'm getting off track. This game completely rinses my brain cells. I'm running on like 5 right now. How many brain cells is a human being supposed to have? I definitely don't have all of them. Anyway, where are we? There is one challenge mission that stands out above the rest, and that's the racing challenge. There's only one race in the whole game, but I actually like the change of pace here. I felt like I was doing something different rather than scanning satellites and blowing up generators. I really wanted to do something other than that, and then the game throws a racing level at me. I'll admit, like I said earlier in the game, it's a little strange to see Starscream orchestrate a race between Sideways and Barricade, but this version of Starscream is completely different, so shit, maybe he just loves NASCAR. Since we're still on that challenge mission topic, I want to talk about Megatron's role in this game, his character in general, and how much I actually kinda like the story direction here. When I say I like the story direction here, I mean I like how Megatron is portrayed as a leader who previously failed, and now he's coming back and people are having a hard time accepting him coming back, and it ultimately doesn't work. His return doesn't work, and people don't accept him as their leader. They accept the new, next best thing, and he's, you know, second rate.
I'll be back on top once Megatron fails the Fallen again.
I don't know, I guess I like that aspect that they kind of touch on a little bit, and I've actually been almost tempted to write a Megatron movie based on that kind of story. If that's a video you would like to see, let me know in the comments down below, and I will make a video where I basically read how I think a Megatron movie should play out. But anyway, I'm getting off track again. So this next section is going to be a Megatron only dedicated portion of the video, more or less. So about halfway through the game, you and Grindor fly out over the ocean to collect the Yulspark fragment, with Starscream covering you. Once you've retrieved it, you can go to Deep 6, where Megatron's corpse is located.
Deep 6? What's he talking about?
Now that we have the shard, it's time to revive Megatron. What do you think Starscream's so mad?
Once you complete another flying Starscream level, Megatron is resurrected and he's revealed for the first time.
At last, I live once again. Lord Megatron, we're honored to have you back. Most of us, anyway. The Fallen has seen fit to revive you. If it had been my decision. If you were making decisions, we'd all be at the bottom of the ocean. One day, I will make you pay, Megatron. Don't count on it. Decepticons, return to base!
Up to this point, Starscream has reluctantly agreed to resurrect Megatron. So after you resurrect Megatron, we don't actually see him in person again until way later in the game when we take control of him. But we do hear him speak in the menu screen a few times over. Most of the time he's just giving orders or bickering with Starscream, who's far more confident in this game than he is in the movies, outright shit-talking Megatron to his face. I kinda like the bickering between them though. They constantly threaten each other, and Starscream remarks all the time about how he was better at calling the shots. They're almost equals in this game. In fact, no, they are equals in this game, and I actually like that dynamic. It's carried over from the first game. Where Megatron and Starscream were equally as intimidating as each other, and they were both built up to be formidable forces. Starscream wasn't overly weak or anything like that. In this game, you get the same impression, with one small difference, that I'll touch on later. So before I do a conclusion paragraph on Megatron's role in this game, let's finish talking about his actual gameplay. So Megatron has two challenge missions later on in the game. One of them has you enter a nest base and destroy it before Optimus Prime arrives, and the other has you killing Autobots before they can reach helicopters containing information of your plans to retrieve the Matrix of Leadership and do something with it. Yeah, that's just a plot point that they now introduced, which is fun. Would have been nice if we'd had one item we needed to get throughout the entire game to build up a sense of urgency to obtain it rather than 3 different things we needed to retrieve, but it's whatever. That's the story at this point. The Fallen just suddenly wants the Matrix after never having mentioned it before. So anyway, those are the 2 missions you play as Megatron, and that's all. Nothing else. You don't get a boss fight to do, you don't get that many Autobots to fight, you just get 2 challenge missions and nothing else. This guy is on the cover of the video game. Why on earth is he not used more? He's also plastered right there on the menu screen, and yet he's criminally underused and barely shows up throughout the game. In the first game, he was one of 2 objectives you were trying to achieve: get the Yulspark and save Megatron. All throughout the game, the characters tell you how amazing and powerful Megatron is, and how with this leadership, you'll become the greatest faction to ever live and all that fun stuff. So when you do actually revive him, and he has this breakout scene, it feels impactful. You feel his presence in the scene despite him having about 5 polygons. He's intimidating, and his speech about leadership shortly after that fills you with confidence as he lectures you about the might of his Decepticon brothers. In this game, he's all but reduced to being the Fallen's bitch boy, and even gets bullied by Starscream. So, let's just fast forward to the end section of the game real quick, because that's the last time we get to see Megatron on screen, and I want to wrap up this Megatron section. The final level of the game has you running around Egypt with the Matrix of Leadership. Devastator is in the level 2 as a background character, and I've got to say, I think it's a missed opportunity to not have involved him directly with the gameplay somehow. Anyways, the final cutscenes play out as follows.
Master, I have brought you the Matrix of Leadership.
I understand that you were also the one that recovered the Allspark Shard.
I was only doing my duty as a Decepticon.
How unfortunate that most Decepticons do not share your definition of duty.
Thank you, Master.
Hear that, Megatron? I'd be worried if I were you.
Don't say another word, or I'll silence you permanently!
We must get to the Harvester. I expect the Autobots to be dealt with swiftly and brutally. Stand aside. My fight is with Megatron and the Fallen.
And this my chance to take you down. I don't think so.
Don't fool yourself. The Fallen expects you to die.
You don't think I know that? I don't care. I'm sending you to the scrap heap, Prime. Optimus Prime is defeated. No, it can't be. I was to be the only one to destroy him.
And yet you didn't. I can't have the general of my army be outmatched by a common foot soldier.
No!
Pity. He used to be the best Decepticon I've had. You have earned a place by my side. We shall conquer the universe together, starting with this planet. You finally got what you heard coming to you, Megatron! That rookie had better watch his back. Nothing will stop me from regaining my status as leader of the Decepticons! With Optimus Prime out of the way, and the Energon from Earth's sun, nothing stands between the Decepticons and galactic conquest. With my new protege at my side, I shall rule the universe without mercy.
So this game has your custom character replace Megatron as the leader of the Decepticons, which is a stark contrast to the original. The original has you murdered by him, leaving him as the only one standing, free to rule the world alone. This game has Megatron outcast by the rest of the Decepticons, and that's it. The game just kind of wraps up there. Now, am I being too harsh on this game? Probably. But at the same time, I'm writing a review for it with the first game in mind, which was stellar. So I don't think it's too unrealistic for me to have expected a little more depth from this one. Imagine if it had been the same style as the first. We could have had Shanghai, Rome, Egypt, and the caves from the beginning of the game as free roam areas in which we'd see our story unfold. We'd get accustomed to our environments rather than having no time to explore them at all, which would make traversing them feel a lot more connected. This game actively discourages exploration since almost every mission has a timer on it, so you'll fail whatever you're doing if you don't just mindlessly do your objective. It's a significantly weaker game, with almost no character development in the story, repetitive gameplay elements and mechanics, and not much to offer in terms of boss battles. But it does service well as a good portable road trip game, and that was the Nintendo DS's goal. You don't really have to pay attention to what's going on, and the repetitive nature of the game means that you know what to expect at every corner, so it means you don't really have to pay attention to what you're doing ever. This game has its positives, and elements I love, such as the customization, swappable loadouts, and the color palette is really nice to look at. The game also introduces a really good soundtrack too, like just listen to this main theme. are so many amazing parts of this game that I wish were explored more, but unfortunately, the more I play it, the more I wish I was just playing the original one. So thank you all for suggesting that I make this video. It is a video that I thought about making 6 months ago when I originally made the first Transformers video. I had a lot of fun making it, writing it, and just kind of going over everything in this game, and unfortunately it's not as long as the original video because there's less to talk about in this game. I did mention earlier on in the video when I said Starscream wasn't overly weak or anything, it's the same impression that we got from the first game, the dynamic between Megatron and Starscream, and I said there was a small difference that I'd touch on later. There is a very minor difference here, and it's just the fact that it's not really concluded well. The game builds them both up as formidable forces, albeit weaker than the first one, but it never does anything with it. I suppose you could say the ending, where Megatron is replaced as General of the Army, meaning that the new guy, you, takes his place and Starscream makes fun of him for it. I guess you could say that's the payoff, and technically that is the payoff, but it doesn't feel earned. In the first game, everything is leading up to the battle between Megatron and Starscream. That is Starscream's ultimate goal from the beginning, is to destroy Megatron and rule over the Decepticons. In this game, it feels like we should have been building to that same conflict. It doesn't matter that it's the same plot as the original game, I think it would be kind of interesting here to see it done again. It's almost like a B plot, you know, like that's more interesting than what I'm doing on the screen, because I don't care about my character. My personal character has absolutely no development like he did in the original game. I want to know what's going on with Starscream and Megatron, this whole dynamic they've got going on, this tug of war, this whole deceptive personality that Starscream's got. I don't know, I just feel like it wasn't earned. The conclusion of Starscream triumphing over Megatron in this game, technically, doesn't feel like it was earned at all, because everything that happened with them happened in the background. I was just watching it happen, and my gameplay wasn't actively contributing to that in any way. In the first game, everything that my character did contributed towards the tug of war, of power that Megatron and Starscream had, and that's what made it so great. And in this one, I'm just trying to get artifacts and scan satellites and get the Matrix and kill Optimus for some reason. And to be fair, killing Optimus is the final nail in the coffin for the Fallen that makes him replace Megatron as the General of the Army, but that doesn't feel earned at all. Maybe I am looking a bit too deep into it for a movie tie-in Nintendo DS game, but like I said earlier, this is coming off of the first game, which was absolutely phenomenal, and the dev team absolutely outdid themselves there, there's no doubt about that. I do actually have more Transformers DS videos on the way. I won't be covering Transformers Revenge of the Wait, what? I completely messed that up. I won't be discussing Transformers Autobots Revenge of the Fallen, mainly because it's exactly the same as this game, but from the Autobots perspective. And when I say that, I don't mean that in terms of how the first games were, where they are two different stories with different missions. There was enough of a difference there for me to make a 20-minute video on the Autobot version, having just come off a 45-minute video on the Decepticons version. Here, the Autobot video would probably be about 5 minutes, because the only changes are in the story, and the criticism there is the exact same as I have for this game, so it would almost be pointless to talk about it. I might do a short supplementary video on it if that's something that you guys are still interested in seeing, but it's not a game I have any interest in completing, considering the game's runtime is around 2 hours, if you're trying to get footage for it at least, where you have to stop for all the cutscenes. I will be talking about the other Transformers DS games, such as the War for Cybertron ones. Those ones have been heavily requested, and I also have a video in the works where I go in depth in Barricade's character from the first Transformers game. I know I'm probably again looking too deep into it because I don't think the devs wrote him as being this super complex character, but I do want to talk about him a lot more because something about him in that game just grabs me, and it's just, he's an interesting supporting character to me, and I want to kind of expand on him myself. So I will be having a Barricade video that come out sometime soon whenever I'm done with that. On top of that, I'm also looking to cover other game franchises like Naughty Bear, and I have a few separate favorite videos in this same style on other topics, such as things to do with movies and namely in the horror genre, because that's like my favorite genre. So if you do like this style of video and you do like my commentary, please make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Maybe, if you want to, turn on notifications so that you don't miss any of these videos in future. We also have a Discord server. The link will be in the description below if you want to come chat to me and other viewers of the channel. But anyways, I think I've rambled on long enough, so I will stop wasting your time. I hope you have a great day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care, everyone.